to the cloud. When it asks to save the recording, if I would like an email letting me know when the recording is processed, put yes.
Okay.
Okay, and then close everything else out. All right. Great. Come on up, Ryan. Ryan, I don't even remember your last name. It's in my email, but
Humphries.
Humphries, that's right. Yes. Yes. You come highly recommended from Dr. Asplin.
Yes.
He presented her class this summer.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great.
She said you were the one to thank for her going into the field she is in today.
Yeah, I have heard saying she has me to thank for all that debt she's got. She's good at what she does. All right, go ahead, Ryan. I'm going to sneak out. My apologies. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right.
Well,
Thanks again.
I
This
was-
is recorded.
Yes, so it's being recorded. You are in the camera up here, and so the students that are up here, they may have questions. If anybody sees that they have questions, we can, yeah, the camera's right over here. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on the chat.
okay, great, thank you. You guys are so responsible, I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for having me here today. I don't know if you have much of a choice, but thank you anyway for being here. My name is Ryan Humphries. So I was introduced to Dr. Risman through Dr. Asplin. You guys know Kelsey Asplin. Same building, somewhere. So she and I started doing personal training together. She was looking for a strength training program, searching online for strength, and that's how we were introduced. We started training. She started getting very strong. She's actually, she may have trained this morning. Anyway, not with me, but another women's lifting group. Anyway, she asked if I'd be able to do a presentation for one of her classes in health dynamics. I said I'd absolutely love to. So one of my goals is to answer questions. I've been in the strength and conditioning field for about a decade now. My background is exercise science. Just as a quick show, anybody, what kind of majors do we have?
I'm an exercise science.
Exercise science? Any nursing?
Integrated healthcare.
Integrated healthcare?
Lifestyle medicine.
Lifestyle medicine? Cool.
Nutrition.
Nutrition? All right. So my talk today is a little bit on strength training. So more about, so exercise in general, specifically the benefits of strength training. What I hope to do is bust any myths out there, answer questions. I've tried presentations before, PowerPoints, and I find that sometimes just getting up and getting to the whiteboard is sometimes a little bit more interactive. So I want to make this try to be as interactive as possible. Again, answer any questions that you guys have. And what I really want to do is make you curious as to what's possible with your own genetic potential. So give you a little backstory on my genetics. One of the things that kind of got me into the health field was my own family history. So my dad had a quadruple bypass at 47. His brother died of a heart attack at 37. I'm 38, so 1 year past that. Every male on the Humphries family has had massive heart attacks and strokes. My dad's 71 right now, and he's the oldest living Humphries that we know of. So they all smoked and drank heavily, and that's kind of the, looking at my dad's side of the family tree, so it's more like a shrub. Not a giant tree, unfortunately. So the thought was like, okay, can I stop? People say, genetics kind of predetermine a lot of things. Like, they determine some things. I'm probably not going to play in the NBA, most likely. Might be a self-limiting belief, but I've given that one up. Genetics do not necessarily, however, have to dictate the rest of your life when it comes to health and performance. So that's kind of what got me into this, was curiosity. So what I really like to do is get people curious as to what their own potential is, and if they even know what's possible. So got a little bit of background on majors and things like that. Anybody in here currently doing any sort of training, exercise, yoga, running, strength training? Throw it out there.
Yoga.
Yoga?
All right. High intensity interval training.
High intensity interval training? Cool. No judgment. It's like Planet Fitness, no judgments. If you are. Cool. So he was just talking about whey supplements. All right, I want to talk about my favorite supplements. So a supplement is something that you can add to your lifestyle, right? Maybe it's already in a little bit, like most of us have protein, but we can always supplement. How's it going?
Hi, sorry.
Oh, it's all right. Traffic was not great. Parking was horrible. You guys probably know that on a daily basis. I'm just not figuring that out. The best supplement you could possibly use for recovery, does anybody know?
Branched chain amino acids.
Close. Kind of a trick question.
Sleep.
Yep, there it is. Sleep. Sleep is kind of like pre-steroids. I say that because the things that happen in sleep, growth hormone release, the recovery process, those are things that people pay high dollar for in the black market. It's how I try to talk to people, not necessarily that I'm pushing steroids, but when I find out somebody's sleeping 4 hours a night, they're not going to get what they want. You could be in the gym 7 days a week, 6 days a week, doing all the right things, eating all the right foods. If you're getting 3 hours of sleep, not only are you not going to get the strength training adaptations, but you're actually digging yourself into deep. You guys probably know that. I'm sure all of you get 8 hours of sleep, like all students do, right? Perfect, uninterrupted 8 hours of sleep. So sleep is far and away the best supplement. Of course, there are other supplements out there, but anybody take supplements, branched chain amino acids? Anybody else supplement out there? Anything?
Holy basil.
Holy basil? Feel a little holy basil at nighttime. All right. So when I say strength training, that's really what we're. By the end of this presentation, will they be able to see that? Yeah, I see that on the board. All right. Strength. By the end of this whole course is probably going to be covered. I'm highly caffeinated today, just to let you guys know. It's not unusual, but I have a tendency also when I get very excited about something not to come up for air. So if I'm going too quick, just let me know. When it comes to strength training, what pops in your mind?
Weightlifting.
Weightlifting.
A challenge.
Challenge.
Difficult.
Difficult.
I think a lot of people just associate that with the gym, like being gym setting.
Sure. Anything positive or negative?
Muscle growth.
Muscle growth. Technique, sure.
Steroid use.
What's that?
Use of steroids.
Steroids. We'll say PEDs, some of that. Performance enhancing drugs. All right, so yes.
Programming.
What's that?
Programming.
Programming, absolutely. So when it comes to strength training, for a guy that owns a gym, I opened up an adventure training center 6 years ago, based on the idea that everything works, nothing works forever, there's always room to improve. It's very easy in the fitness world to get isolated on strength training, powerlifting island, or Olympic lifting island, or CrossFit island, or parkour island, or yoga island, and get separated, right? When in reality, like, you could do a little yoga for a warm-up, do a little Olympic lifting, maybe do a CrossFit Metcon, cool down with a little yoga as well, and all of those things work. Now, depending on your goal, you might need to tailor that to your own needs, but like everything works. Just like Dr. Risman was saying, if something's making a lot of money, question, right? Healthcare is making a lot of money. I won't question that. So when it comes to people selling fitness programs and saying that their system is the best, right, or their tool is the best, a little bit of that is brand awareness and protection of their brand, right? Because in reality, like, it's kind of silly that any of us should have to go to a location to where we push out all this energy. Like as humans in 2019, it's a little bit unnatural that we go to a place, make sure we have our protein shaker good to go. We got to put on certain clothes and then do this for this long and take this much rest. Like it's kind of silly looking at it from like a bird's eye view, right? If our ancestors were to see what we're doing here, they'd be like, what is that place? It looks like a place where they're wasting a whole lot of energy, where they probably should be out hunting or gathering or doing something like that, right? So we didn't used to have to do strength training. It wasn't a thing because like our lives just involved picking things up, moving frequently, lifting, carrying, jumping, crawling, catching, all that stuff. Unfortunately, today, I'm sure all you guys do that stuff outside, but like we sit a lot, right? The typical human, what I call the zoo human, the average American especially, gets up in the morning, they sit down for breakfast. And they get up and they sit down in their car for their maybe half-hour commute. And then they get to wherever they're going, maybe work, and they sit down again. And then they go to lunch, probably not standing, and they sit down again. Maybe if they're lucky, they go to a gym, where oftentimes, let's go. They will sit down on a machine, push over here, stand up, sit down on this machine, sit down on this machine, and we just kind of start devolving, essentially, that's what I call it. Devolution. So strength training can kind of combat what 2019 technology society has kind of done to us as a species. And the benefits, everybody knows, like, okay, yeah, exercise is probably good for you. Right? Anybody think exercise is bad for you? No? Okay, we're at least on the same page there. Now, sometimes you think the word exercise or strength training, you think difficult, right? Something that's hard to do. Exercise, to me, again, maybe sounds strange for a guy that runs a training center. Exercise doesn't sound fun. Oh, exercise. Now, training or training for life or challenging myself, in a good way, putting a little flip on it. Maybe it's just semantics, but just the word exercise doesn't conjure up, yeah, let's go do that for everybody in America. Why 2/3 of us are overweight and obese. But strength training specifically can start strength training plus sleep. It's like the magic secret combination. Will unlock positive growth hormone production, testosterone, growth hormone, a cascade of amazing things. Body recovery, injury prevention, sleep plus strength training. All right. Now, I'm not anti-cardio. All right. So people think strength training, you're probably thinking, what kind of tools do you think when you think strength training?
Heavy weights.
Heavy weights. Not just weights, but heavy weights, right? Kettlebells, dumbbells, body weight. So like moving things around, right? What do you think of when you think of cardio?
Cycling.
Running, cycling, maybe swimming, rowing, jump rope, things like that, right? Now, I may be a little bit biased towards strength training. I do both, and I encourage all. The reason I'm talking specifically about strength training is the hormonal response. So there are things that we get from strength training that we don't necessarily get from cardio. Now you can develop an amazing cardiorespiratory system from cardio. You can develop a great VO2 max, lung capacity, potentially extend your lifespan. You can also do that from strength training, but there's also positive hormonal effects that happen from strength training that a lot of people are not aware of, or if they are, the strength training that they're doing may not be optimal. So what I really want to do today is give you guys some kind of practical applications, things that not to just be like, hey, that was cool, I have no idea what to do. By the end of today, I'd like to give you an idea of like, oh, this is something that I could actually incorporate today that could probably get me feeling better next week, or at least in the future. I know none of you guys have jobs, right? Full-time students, right? 8 hours of sleep every night, everything is solid, nutrition's on point. My goal is just to throw some extra information out there on top of all the other information you have, but hopefully you can incorporate it in so it's only going to help you digest further information, help you get better sleep. How many of you guys think that if you were getting a little bit better sleep, maybe your test scores might be a little higher? Sorry, apologies. Alarm. Now, anybody have any anxiety ever? Like that? What if we could just decrease that? take that down a little bit. Maybe improve the sleep. About now, young libido, increasing that. All of this, sleep plus strength training. All right. What I'm gonna get into here is first off busting some myths. All right. So strength training, when it comes to lifting weights, one of the biggest things I hear from men and women is I don't necessarily know if I want to lift weights because it's going to make me bulky. Who's heard that? Anybody believe that? All right, good. Now, whatever fields that you get into, you guys got to remember you are the minority, right? You are already on the cusp of thinking about health, nutrition, integrating that into a lifestyle. Most people are not. Now, lifting doesn't make you bulky. Cookies make you bulky. Cookies, cakes, pies, excess calories is what puts on weight. So it's impossible on planet Earth to get larger without consuming more calories than you burn. Now, that's not the end of that equation, all right? So how many guys have heard calories in, calories out? All right? So calories in, calories out. If I take in 3,000 calories and I burn 3,000 calories, I'm not going to lose any weight. What you take in can also dictate what you burn. How many of you guys think, so this is, when I first started strength training, my mentors at 24 Hour Fitness taught me the calories in, calories out equation. They're like, well, if you want people to lose weight or gain weight, just eat more calories or eat less calories than what you're doing. How many of you guys think 100 calories of kale is equivalent to 100 calories of egg white? It's not, right? Simply, I've debated this ad nauseum with plenty of dietitians, but it told me it is. Maybe from an energy standpoint, if I was to try to light a fire with energy and calories, then those calories are the same. But what 100 calories of iceberg lettuce does in my system versus 100 calories of grass-fed beef, completely different. There's a different hormone release, there's a different, insulin's gonna go up, go down, not do anything. Calories are not created equal, right? So when it comes to bulking up, something that often happens when people say, man, I feel like I'm putting on excess weight. What happens is they've probably started strength training. They may have started putting on muscle. Now they're just hungrier because they're expending more energy, and so they're eating more. And because nobody's really weighing their food, and if you go to Chipotle, you're probably getting 2.5 servings, versus regular servings and things like that. So it's an excess amount of calories. Today I'm not talking too much about calories, but just kind of wanted to throw that out there. Lifting doesn't make you bulky, it makes you strong. You guys have all seen the picture of like the 5 pounds of fat, 5 pounds of muscle, right? That like classic picture's been out for like 30 years now. It's like, oh, 5 pounds of muscle, 5 pounds of fat. Muscle takes up less space. So you could potentially weigh 5 pounds more than you do now and go down a size or two in clothes, just because muscle takes up less space. That's kind of one of the best ways to think about it. Now, any other myths out there? Maybe, if you believed, if you knew it was a myth, you probably wouldn't be able to throw it out there, but anything you've heard surrounding that area.
When you turn 29 or 30, you no longer can put on any muscle. You're gonna decrease in muscle the rest of your life.
Yes. All right. Who believes that?
Somehow a little bit.
Maybe a little bit?
Maybe that's fear.
Now,
Is it more difficult?
it's not as easy. So you take an 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old, let's say a 17, 18-year-old male human, put him under a squat rack and feed him a bunch of cheeseburgers, like, body's going to start to change. You do that same thing with a 30-year-old male who is not doing 2-a-days on the field, who is not walking to and from class, who is not getting up in the morning, mowing the lawn and all that. What's a 30-year-old male doing? Mostly doing the sitting, all right? So it's not necessarily that the hormones have changed that much. The lifestyle has drastically changed, though. How far did you guys walk today? you think, thus far?
4 months.
2 miles, 4 miles. When you get your first job, depending on what that is, like outside of here, let's say taking the information that that's your first job. Sure, most of you guys have jobs now, have had several. Getting into, think about maybe the first job that you got that wasn't on your feet all the time, or if you had any of those. Typically, and this is like the classic freshman 15, if I go from being a cheerleader, right, doing 2-a-days, walking to school, maybe getting on the bus, back and forth, not having a car, expending, I was also in the Navy, I have a tendency to swear, that's being recorded, I'm gonna really stop myself. I got out of the Navy 19 years ago, a long time ago. So that's like sailors a thing, but you're walking a shit ton, right? Like you're walking a lot. Typically, you don't think to yourself, well, I have this job, now I need to change my portions for breakfast, change my portions for lunch, now you're probably eating the same thing. Not only that, but it's like, hey, we're going out for happy hour, guys. Okay, there's some extra calories. Oh, we're doing a pizza party at the office. Okay, so like the freshman 15 turns into like the first job of 30 often. Now, is it harder? And this is kind of a question. It's like chicken or egg, right? Was it the lifestyle that changed that hormonal adaptation, or was it the hormones? Now, testosterone does go down. If you look at all the charts, and it's like men and women in America, hormones change throughout our lifetime. Like that's true. The testosterone of an 85-year-old man is different than a 15-year-old man, right? Very different. Now, that being said, we can increase, and I'm going to talk about testosterone and growth hormones specifically. We can increase those hormones specifically through specific exercises. 3 specific exercises that have been shown to increase those more than anything else. They know what those are. And disclaimer, there's probably a lot of exercises that will increase that, ebb and flow that a little bit, but there are 3 that have been studied quite a bit. And this is where I really want to get into, like, if you're going to do strength training, if you're going to get into some sort of exercise program, ensure that at least 2 out of these 3 are in there, and you're going to be doing yourself a world of good. 3 exercises.
I have 3, I don't know. I want to say deadlift, squat, and bench press.
Ooh,
But
you got 2 out of the 3. You got 2 out of the 3.
Okay.
All right.
And are we just talking about reproductive hormones or other specific ones?
This one specifically, testosterone and growth hormone. The stuff that people pay big money for on the black market. There's one more that's a little bit more technical that not everybody necessarily needs to do. It's kind of a combination of those 2. What's that?
Okay. No, a get up? I don't know. You said combination.
Clean.
What's
Clean.
Clean?
Dirt.
clean?
Right.
There it is. So lesser known. Right now, we take these 2. Deadlifts, squats, and cleans have been studied enough. So I have a tendency to nerd out on certifications. I like letters. So strength and conditioning, I'm a certified strength and conditioning specialist. So if any of you guys want to go into the strength and conditioning field or interested in that, it's a fantastic certification. I'll throw that up here. NSCA CSCS. So in the CSCS book, there's a huge chapter on performance enhancing drugs. Right after, there's my alarm again. Usually Thursdays, I'm going to class. And my alarms tell me when to go to class. There's a specific chapter on hormonal release via exercise. Deadlifts, squats, and cleans, interestingly enough, can change that growth hormone. Now, something also very interesting, I didn't really pick up a barbell until I was 30. So I'm 38 right now. I was in the Navy. I drank and cussed like a sailor. That's what I did when I was in the Navy. I was not lifting a lot. I ran when I had to run. I did push-ups when I had to do push-ups. But I didn't really get into strength training, or it's one of those like, woulda, coulda, shoulda. What if I'd have used, all that energy I had back then? I can say that I'm like the strongest, leanest, fittest I've ever been at 38 than I was, like way more than I was when I was 30. My business partner likes to say that I'm literally three times as strong as when he met me. He was a little nervous when we first started the gym. I had trouble kind of moving the mats around. And but through and up until that point, I was doing a lot of exercises on resistance machines, which were fine. When I had like a little bit of muscle tone, I felt like pretty good about it. I had done some free weights, but I wasn't doing deadlifts. I wasn't doing squats, and a lot of it was lack of knowledge. I didn't know how to perform that appropriately. Deadlift, we're dead. Don't those things hurt your back? Squats, man, you'll kill your knees. I don't even know what the hell clean is. Like, and typically, if you're not working, with a strength specialist, or you didn't do these things, if you did them in high school, you may have had a strength and conditioning coach. It might have been the guy that was just like, more, throw it on the bar, or it might have been somebody who really knew what they were doing. So, show of hands, who has done at least one of those? Familiar with? All right. So a deadlift is useful in the fact that, like, if I need to pick something off the floor, I can use my hamstrings, glutes. People have been deadlifting since humans first stood up and realized that they had to pick something up. Deadlift, picking something up off the floor. Squatting is how 2/3 of the world still goes to the bathroom. This is a natural human resting position. Actually, right now, if you guys want to play along.
Oh, yeah.
How many of you guys can get into this position? No judgment. If you want to hang out, give it a shot. Everybody, sit up for a second. Yeah, there we go. That yoga is much better. Oh,
Let's put the boots on.
nice. Now, and if anybody has any knee, hip, ankle issues, anything like that, they don't want to do it, it's totally cool. So most of the classes that I've done this presentation in, like, people can get down here pretty easy. Know that most of the people that you'll be working with will not be able to. If you were to walk down 16th Street Mall and ask 10 people to do this, you're probably less than half going to be able to do that. Just being in this position is kind of the exact opposite of where we are sitting most of the time. I try to get people, if it doesn't hurt your knees or anything like that, start to get down in this position. You can use your knees to kind of use your elbows rather, kind of pry the knees out, hanging out a little bit. You're taking your back into kind of a big stretch, almost like a little bit of traction. Just kind of getting down there, resting, hanging out. This is one of the first things I have people do just to see kind of mobility. Now, some of you guys feel yourself up on your toes. You may feel yourself on the toes. That's typically an indication of heels. Tight ankles. So either tight ankles or tight calves. All right, come on up, shake that, shake it out. There's a little squat challenge out there, 7 minutes a day. If anybody wants to try it, can you spend, not 7 minutes at a time, you can spend 20 seconds, but like throughout the day, try to accumulate about 7 minutes. So you think about what I like to call species-specific movement. Sharks swim, snakes slither, birds fly, monkeys climb. Like, humans can do a lot of things. We're not doing most of those things today. If you were to go to a developing world, you're going to see, like in Thailand, there's places where 70-year-old ladies just routinely climb up the tree to get a coconut. Not because they're some sort of superhero, that's just what they do when they want a coconut. They've been doing it since they were 4, so that's just what they do. Now, aside from flight, like, I'm a big believer that, like, if our body can move in a certain direction, maybe we should try that every now and then. But most people in America don't get into that position. Again, you guys are the minority, again, being able to just get down into that position. Some of you might get a little blood rush. They feel better after that.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Cool. Started incorporating that in your day. And if it hurts, say you start to hold on to something. Like, you can even hold on to a wall. Not only that, but like, share it with your partner. Share it with your mom or dad. See if they can get down, into that position, if they're open to it. So let them know, like, okay, your knees hurt, your back hurt. Maybe if we were doing more things that our species should be doing, or that we have done for a very long time, kind of start to move like a human again, kind of wake things up. Part of moving like a human is being strong. Any of you guys familiar with Weston Price? Weston Price Foundation? No? You'll probably learn about it at some point. So Weston Price, one of my favorite stories, he was a dentist around the turn of the century. And his theory was that if a species is doing well, you should be able to tell that by their teeth. So you should be able to look, if I come across a herd of deer, and they're all like, he's a big cheese, no cavities, no spacing, like that deer, population of deer is probably eating what they should be eating, right? If I come across a population of bonobos or chimpanzees with solid dental structure, like pretty good. When you come across a species where like teeth are pretty janky and maybe they're spaced out, maybe they're rotting, like something's wrong with that species. Well, around early 1900s, this guy's a dentist and he's looking at people in the 1900s and he's like, what the hell's going on with humans' teeth? Like, we're probably eating some weird, something's not right. So when you see like raccoons that start really getting into garbage or chimps that start going down to the market and getting excess fruit, you'll start seeing changes in that dental structure. So he sets sail around the earth and he goes to like 100 different countries. And he's got like old school flash photography, stand there for 5 minutes, let me take a picture of it. Right? You can Google Weston Price pictures and you'll see some very interesting things. What he found was that he found cultures with no cavities, no crowding, had all their wisdom teeth, no issues. What do you think they were eating?
Hunter-gatherers.
Exactly. Not only did they have great teeth, they were jacked. There's a picture of him standing with like 3 guys and they almost look like they're like doing a show, a bodybuilding show. They're just like, nope, they're just natural humans probably looking at doing what humans did do for a very long time. Now, is it possible, for all of us to hunt and gather food? No. What he also found was as the countries became westernized, as more carbohydrates specifically, I'm not anti-carb guy, but as more like processed carbohydrates came into these diets, the bone structure changed. The nasal cavity narrowed. The eyes became closer together. The jaw structure changed. And what happened was when you go from a very nutrient-dense diet, if I'm, spearing a buffalo and eating that liver and getting all the vitamin A and vitamin K2 and everything that I need, right? And now I'm going to corn, big difference in those nutrients, right? Not that corn's bad, it's just not near as nutritious and bone structure starts to change. Very interesting. If you have extra time, I can make you Weston Price. So what he found was these people were unintentionally squatting, unintentionally deadlifting. Now, when it comes to the cleans, that's some stuff that humans made up. They were like, let's play around with some barbells, kettlebells, not necessarily a natural human movement. A clean is essentially where I grab something and then bring it up to my shoulders. If you ever watch Olympic weightlifting in the Olympics, you'll see a clean and jerk, which is half of that. Now, if I was to say, what are the most beneficial exercises total, somebody else mentioned a get up. And I'm gonna also put on here carry. So as far as like what a strength training regimen should look like, as far as like what is gonna give you the most bang for your buck, if you're like, you know what, lots of people are thinking, I should probably get to the gym, I should probably go to the gym, you get to the gym, you're like, what should I do? I'll get on that machine, or like, maybe I'll try to remember what my strength and conditioning coach said from high school, or maybe I'll read this book or whatever, maybe I'll get a trainer. If you incorporate these 5 movements, you'll be doing yourself. These movements will give you, these 10% here will give you 90% of your results. So what I see happen very frequently is when people say, I want to start going to the gym. Not because they just want to go to the gym and they love the smell of it. They want to go to the gym because typically like, okay, well, I want to change my body composition. Okay, so like maybe I'll get on a treadmill, maybe I'll run a little bit, maybe I'll do some body pump, something like that. And so what they want and then what they're doing is a little bit at odds with each other. So working at 24 Hour Fitness, I saw people all the time that were unfortunately just kind of spinning their wheels. They'd say, well, I want to change, or like, let's see them get on the scale every time, or like, look at their arms in the mirror, or their legs, and things just weren't changing month after month, year after year. Usually what they would do is the machines just kind of hang out. And they maybe even seeing some results like right at the beginning, and then it just kind of levels off. When I started incorporating this, and when we incorporate these things into kind of the average human's life, things start to change. So you can probably bet that the folks that Weston Price found back in the day, they were probably carrying things. If they weren't living next to the water, they're probably carrying things for an extended period of time, right? So like carrying heavy objects. Right now, you guys are doing heavy carries every day and you don't even realize it, like the backpack. I don't know how much your backpacks weigh. I imagine it's not 0, right? But there's something like you have an external load. You're strength training every day doing a carry. And if you put that backpack on and then you stand up, kind of getting a get up. Now, full get up could be like laying on the ground, getting back up. Laying on the ground, getting back up. If you're playing with kids, if you're just playing in general, you're getting on the floor and getting back up. A lot of my personal training clients are in their 60s and 70s. And that's one of their goals, is just to get on the floor and be able to play with their grandkids. So we do a lot of get-ups. We're gonna get up and then get down, and we're gonna carry some shit, some stuff. So, record. Deadlift, squats, cleans, get-ups, carry. Now, clean is kind of one of those, I'll put a little asterisk out here, because it's not necessarily something everybody needs, but I truly believe if everybody was incorporating some type of deadlift, and you can also call this a hinge movement, a squat, a get up, and some sort of carry, that life becomes a little bit easier.
So in terms of all of these exercises, is weight going to matter more than the exercise itself?
What do you want?
Like progression?
Yes and no.
What do
So you
wanna
mentioned
do with
programming,
progression?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you wanna make sure that you have the functional range of motion before you add. Yeah, so you wanna make sure that you would, make sure that person can do that without pain and at a pulse level, and then you would.
Cool. But like, is adding weight, well, I guess that comes back to the question of what do you want?
Right. Now, this is pulled from one of the CrossFit methodologies. I don't agree with everything. I was a CrossFit affiliate for a while. Existence is the name of the gym with an A. It stands for an active existence. Shameless plug. So one of the things we did was kind of incorporate a little thing that works from everywhere, right? So one of CrossFit's methodologies here, I hope I don't get sued, is mechanics, then consistency, then intensity. So intensity could mean speed, it could mean load, how much weight, it could mean decreased rest periods, it could mean how frequently you're doing it, right? So if you jump in with heavy weight, fast, not a lot of rest periods every day of the week, you have screwed yourself if you don't have the mechanics down. So when it comes to all of these things, mechanics are crucial. So technique, you could call technique, mechanics, form, whatever that is. If you're doing the movement appropriately, even if you know nothing about body mechanics, what looks like a stronger lift?
Oh, definitely.
The first one, right? One's different than the other, except most people don't think about how we lift things up, and we just kind of bend over and do it. Well, and if you're sitting for most of the day, I had a professor that used to throw his back out at least once a year. One year he did it from like lifting a pen. He was in his chair and he was like, oh, I'm just gonna grab this. No! It was like, question?
Not question, just a little bit comment about culture difference.
Mhm.
Here we got a lecture about food deserts, and my mind food desert was you live in the middle of nowhere and your grocery store is really far away. And then he started saying the statistics, which was ridiculously high. I said, could you please define food desert? What food desert actually is? And he said something like a mile away store where you have to actually take a bus, and then he, with this horror in his eyes, and then you have to carry all these bags with groceries to your home. I said 90+% of Russian women do that every day without any mechanics, just carry that shit from the bus to your home, or even from the market if they don't have money for the bus. So that was really bizarre for me, how culturally there is such a difference. Like these people cannot exist. We need to help them because they're a mile away from the grocery store, and they have to carry those groceries from the bus stop to their home, like
And
200 yards.
And that is why there are more obese American women than there are Russian women. That's one of the reasons, right? But like daily caloric burn, way higher in Russia. Average caloric burn in average steps. Anybody know how many steps the average American walks?
2,000.
What's that?
2,000.
2,000? 2,000, sometimes up to 4, maybe up to 5. You know the average in every other country? Minimum? 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
10,000.
Double. 10,000. Yeah.
We're gross.
I was in the Navy. I love America. America's lazy. Say that. Like we just, and we're also lazy because we don't have to, right? Like
I can't just say it.
it's
I passed 3 lifts.
You just got, it's like almost a pathology if you cannot sit in the car, and drive to the store.
if Weston Price's guys that he interviewed 100 years ago had an option to get on a lift, hell yeah, they would. If they had an option to have somebody else carry their groceries or get a little scooter, they absolutely would have used that. Nobody wants to do more work than what they need to, right? Just like, no, I've got to get groceries home. It's not like, that's just what I do, I carry. And I bet those Russian women have a great strong handshake too.
Yeah.
Grip strength also correlated with longevity. Now, it could be just because, so like, are Russian women, strength training every day? Sort of, but like not traditional strength training, right? They're not deadlifting, but like they probably have a strong grip, which means they probably have good muscle tone, which means they're probably going to live just a little bit longer. But yeah, the culture is that's a huge thing. So and this is
Also,
more
the food that they're consuming is probably way less processed than ours.
That as well.
in the United States.
that as well. Yeah,
Crazy.
food, the portion sizes. Then another thing, it's a whole extra level of rabbit hole is community. The communities in other countries are far different than, they actually have communities where Americans like to isolate ourselves by the house and put it way out here.
And what's considered to be living by the grocery store, I guess in Russia, here it's a food desert.
Food desert, right? Which is still an issue, but it's an issue because people are, I'm now getting on a soapbox, especially because people are lazy, and don't want to go out there, but like some people just do not have access to it, right? But kind of coming back to access, we all have access to this, right? Whether it's holding on to something, like getting the mechanics down properly. If you, go to YouTube, and actually, put this out here. So our YouTube channel has about 200 videos on techniques. If you Google, squat tutorial, there aren't too many people doing terrible things out there, especially if they know it's on YouTube and they want hits and they want likes and they want advertisements and things like that. Typically, they're going to put out some good content. It's got several million views. Now, there's still crap out there. You're always going to find crap. But if you're like, okay, well, what does it look like to do a deadlift? One of the big things I recommend is taking a PVC pipe or a broomstick. If you're like, I'm still a little, I don't necessarily want to grab, barbell or something like that. Film yourself doing it. Set up a camera. Watch the deadlift on maybe the Existence YouTube channel. Subscribe. And and then film yourself and say, does my back look like their back? Does my feet look like their feet? Just kind of look at those, put it next to each other, do a little pick stitch, whatever. Throw it on the app and say like, okay, am I doing those same movements correctly? When it comes to get up, we have a video online. It's a get up with a shoe. And it's a Turkish get up. Anybody ever done a Turkish get up? Yeah. Turkish get up.
He's curious, he wants to.
I want to know what this thing is.
If you search for Turkish,
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, this sounds, easy to do or less painful, and I suspect it is not.
it's so it's pretty much getting up. I'll show you guys at the end the full Turkish get up. Last time I was here, we went outside, did a bunch of planks in the grass. I'm not gonna have you guys do that. But when it comes down to like the weight, right? So getting back to the question of real quick, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, just keep going.
2 more
Yeah,
hours.
2 hours.
All right, yeah. Order some Chipotle. Good to go.
Yes.
So mechanics first, right? There's no need to apply the most weight that I can do if I'm still unsure about what this movement actually looks like, which unfortunately in the world of CrossFit is if you have a gym that doesn't necessarily know what they're doing, or in the world of bodybuilding, it could be, I throw CrossFit under the bus. I love them, but there are people who are running CrossFit gyms that don't necessarily know good mechanics. I've met plenty of them. Unfortunately, there's people that are running all kinds of gyms, so not just CrossFit, but I've met plenty of, Ironman triathletes that run like a duck, right? And just like feet flared out, things like that. So mechanics are actually absolutely crucial. Now, when it comes to, just as another little aside, if I'm doing 3 sets of 10, how many repetitions is that? 30, right? 3 sets of 10, total 30 reps, right? Now, I could hurt myself on 1 rep, but like it's 30 repetitions total. If my posture's a little bit awkward and I'm not using a ton of weight, probably still okay, not the best. I need to learn, I need to perfect it. If you're running a mile, how many repetitions is that? Thousands, right? So if you're running a mile, right foot kicks out every time, expect to have a knee replacement probably in the next 20 years. So in the physical therapy world, one of the biggest issues seen just in all of physical therapy knee replacements from runners. A lot of people look at running, and you can get a runner's high. Anybody have a runner's high or a cyclist's high, been able to like get that, like, oh, it's endorphins, this feels good. Well, it feels good because it's what humans are probably supposed to do at some level. Your body's thanking you for actually getting out and doing these things. Like, yeah, do more of this. This is good for you. The body likes to move. Now, we don't want to move any more than we have to, but the body does like to move, which is why also a big fan of the minimum effective dose. Take your meds. So why do 100 of something if I can get away with doing 10, right? And this is where in the high intensity functional fitness world, more is better. Anybody know what an AMRAP is? As many rounds as possible. So in the military, they do a push-up test or a sit-up test, which is technically as many repetitions as possible, as many rounds as possible. Hey, we're going to do 2 minutes. We're going to see how many push-ups you can do. It's a great test of upper body endurance or core endurance. If I wanted to say, okay, I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes, how many times can I squat? Then 8 weeks from now, I'm going to test that again. So at Existence, we do a lot of testing. Like every 8 weeks, we pick 1 or 2 things. Might be a minute, could be 20 minutes. We just kind of see how are we doing now? Have we improved? Do we need to tweak that program a little bit? So minimal effective dose gets a little bit out of control when people are like, oh yeah, anybody ever heard of the 300 or seen the movie The 300?
This is Sparta.
This is Sparta, right? So 300 came out, and then the workout for 300 came out. I was like, oh, this was the workout that like all the guys did in 300 to look like they did in the movie. It's like that was one of the workouts that people did. So everybody was coming into 24-hour fitness wanting to do the 300 workout. It was like, those guys were working on the supervision of a trainer. That was not their first rodeo, not their first workout. This was something that they built up to. So for most people, like I would say, like starting 5 repetitions, 5 to 10, as far as learning something and learning the mechanics of it, like a set of 5. That's not set of 5, I'm out, I'm leaving for the day, but in a row to get the mechanics down. I mean, I'd highly recommend working with a strength training professional or something like that, but you can find most of this stuff on YouTube. I'm not here to sell you training services. I'll answer questions if you'd like, but minimal effective dose, question anybody. When I worked at 24-Hour Fitness, every now and then you'd walk by a trainer and you'd hear him go, 1006, 1007. I'm like, I don't even want to look over there and see what's going on. And it was just the people think, yeah, I'm doing all this work. If you stick with the basics, all right? Actually, I'm going to erase some of this. Now, what I want to get into is kind of like how to make this work. This is all great. Right, it's great. I get that strength training is going to boost my hormone, my testosterone. It's going to make me live longer. It's going to increase my grip strength. It's going to make me look better naked. Now, extra added bonus. So how do I apply that? Realistically, 3, most people don't need any more than 3 to 5 times per week. So you could go 6 times a week. You could go 7 times a week doing stuff. Over the last 6 years specifically, I've worked out about 3 times a week. Now my job is pretty active, so I'm always moving around. But as far as like the strength gains that I've seen from deadlifts, squats, all those things, my goal is not to be world's strongest man or professional powerlifter or anything like that. My goal is to move well and be strong for life. So if you want, anybody have a piece of paper? I was gonna say, we created something we call, it's the Existence, actually. It's about a piece of paper. I wrote an ebook a while back on strength training standards. So what I mean by strength training standards is how strong is strong. So if somebody's like, I want to get stronger. Like, do you need to have a 500-pound deadlift? Not necessarily. Do you need to be able to run a mile or a marathon in 1 hour and 59 minutes? Like you guys just did? Everybody see that?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Nuts.
No questions about it, but we do have an ebook. If anybody, it's online. It's kind of hard to find. If anybody would like that ebook, I'll send it to you for free. If anybody wants to throw your email address on there, read the ebook for free. So 3 to 5 times a week, and you'll see in that ebook deadlifts, squats, cleans, get-ups, carries, and then kind of like as a male, as a female, what is strong, kind of based on, we base a lot of it on body weight. So one of the things that doesn't necessarily work about CrossFit is it's men use this, women use this. Well, I know I'm a pretty big guy, but as a smaller gentleman, most of the guys that are doing CrossFit are about 200 pounds, where I'm about 150. But I'm a guy, they're a guy, so we all use the same weight. Good for me, I guess. I'm getting stronger. They're getting more cardio, so we're getting slightly different strength training adaptations. I'm a big fan of kind of basing things on body weight, age, and years of experience. So just because your genetics say this about you, it doesn't necessarily mean that means you should use this weight. But if you think about what is my training age, right? Am I a novice, am I beginner, intermediate, advanced, elite? That's going to dictate kind of maybe what intensity that you're working out. Our number one goal, and in the health world, number one goal of all health professionals, do no harm. All right, number two, get results. So if you harm yourself or someone else, those results are going to take a lot longer. If I wanted to get really strong legs and then I did a really crappy squat and jacked up my knees, it's going to take a lot longer to get strong legs, right? So mechanics always, then once you have mechanics solid, then we start adding consistency. Consistency is that 3 to 5 times per week. Once that feels solid, then we can kind of bump up intensity. Now, as far as specifically for strength training, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of sets and reps. So if someone's doing 12 or more repetitions, so if I'm doing push-ups and I'm doing more than 12, what I'm really doing is working on endurance. It's not bad, strength endurance, I'm still getting stronger, but I'm not necessarily working on pure strength. I'll get into that in just a little bit. Now, if I'm working somewhere between like 6 and 10, this is what we call hypertrophy, or hypertrophy, if you're from Missouri. That's how I learned it. Hypertrophy. So as far as repetitions, now if I'm working somewhere between like 3 and 5, now I'm working on strength. 1 to 3 is kind of max strength and or power. To give you an example of what like a 1 to 3, what power looks like, go to theolympics.com. I don't know if that's a thing. Type in like Olympic clean and jerk, and you'll see somebody doing 1 repetition as hard as they can with as much weight as they can. Not necessarily that everybody needs to do that. That's just what happens when you're working at this load. Now, should I expect to use the same weight for 1 repetition that I do for 12? No. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing. So in order to know kind of how many repetitions to do, you don't necessarily need to max out per se, but you need to have a good idea of where your strength lies. So I'm not a huge fan of like testing a 1 rep max absolute strength unless you're a power lifter, you absolutely have to. If you know your 1 RM roundabout, you can guesstimate. You'd be like, okay, well, I lifted that for 5. Probably could have done a couple more. You can guesstimate within a few pounds, probably. Just kind of use your own logic. Okay, I could probably do that. So the next piece of this is kind of percentages. So if I'm doing max strength power, I'm probably at like 90+%, right? If I'm working in 3 to 5, probably more like 70 to 85%, 6 to 10, probably, and that's about in the same. This is more like 80 to 85, 70 to 80, and then 65-ish%, just if you wanted any ideas on that. And that's a little bit more like down the rabbit hole technicality, but again, I just kind of like to give you an idea. If I want to start doing some of these movements, I could probably start with about 5. When I start and get this mechanically sound, adding this consistency, I'm probably not going to be at 80, 85%. Now, what you really want to do is kind of challenge yourself. So the number is not in the rep. The magic is not in like, oh, 3 reps, that's the magic number, there it is. The magic is in kind of how that feels. All right? So let everybody stand up for just a second. Now, if you can develop tension, you can develop strength. So there's a lot of people that just kind of move. You see people doing push-ups. If I ask, 10 people, how many push-ups can you do? I'll get, 5, 500. Some people are doing these push-ups. Some people with heads are bobbing around. Some people are doing these push-ups. Like mechanics are all different. Like my femur is different than your femur, different than your femur. Like we all have different, biomechanics, and that's okay. But as far as developing tension, what I want you guys to think about is if I'm going to squat, although this is a natural human resting position, right? Not necessarily how I want to load up a squat pattern. Now in this position, I could have my knees cave in, I could hang out, I could eat a bowl of cereal, whatever. But you'll notice also that my back is rounded, right? Now, so everybody come down to that position. Just that deep squat, if you want to. No points off. So you're down to that deep position. Now, I want you to put your hand on your low back. Can you feel like that little bit of rounded tension? Now, come up until you don't feel it and push your knees out. Maybe don't want to hold this position as long, right? This is the position where you will develop strength. Now, if you cave your knees in, doesn't feel great, right? Push the knees out, we get solid, we develop tension. Okay, come on up, shake it out. Shake it out, shake it out. So in order to develop strength, we want to make sure that there's tension. In order to develop tension, we need to put torque in the system. So there are little things. If I'm standing here and I push my knees together and try to squeeze my butt, it's very difficult. If I push my knees out, I can turn it on. So anybody ever do planks?
Mhm.
Anybody ever see like how long they could do a plank? 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Planks are great. Planks, I'm gonna bust a little myth on the plank though. We're gonna try a plank. Got a minute, we're doing okay on time. Planks are a great way to learn how to develop tension. So when I teach anybody about strength training, the first thing that I do is have them get in a plank position and squeeze every muscle in their entire body as hard as they possibly can. Now, if you do that, you'll be able to do it for about 10 seconds. Some people can get upwards of 20. Most people start shaking. You should be shaking violently. What happened was, that was kind of the original idea of the plank, and people were like, oh, they're doing it. It's like an ab exercise. I can do this longer. They're doing it. How long can you do it? 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and then plank contest, and now everybody's just kind of doing this weird elbow toe thing. We're going to do a plank. It's originally developed by the Russians, the RKC plank. So Russian Kettlebell Club, Russian Kettlebell certification. RKC plank. Goes by a few other names as well. I think I'm just going to call it the Ryan plank now because everybody else is taking it. Heard it by like 10 different names of people. Thank you.
Oh, wait.
We didn't get that.
Oh, sorry. So developing tension. A lot of people will get into these movements. So if I'm doing squats, right, and I'm just kind of squatting, you think I'm going to get the benefits as if I was tight, tension, loaded, really focusing on everything. No, right? It's different. Just going through the motions is not going to get you all of those beautiful things, the decrease in anxiety, the increase in libido, the increase in testosterone and growth hormone. That happens with tension. And I should have mentioned this much earlier. Breathing. So when you develop tension, you also have to breathe. Anytime you learn a new exercise, ask yourself, how should I be breathing during this exercise? So a lot of times people will teach exercises, or if you jump into an exercise class, it looks like this. You're like, okay, I'm trying to mimic. If anybody's ever done a Zumba class, you're just trying to, like, I forgot to breathe. You're just trying to mimic the movements, right? Which is fine, like you're mimicking that, you can dance like that, but you don't necessarily want to strength train like that. Strength training, you want to think about how you're breathing, where's the tension, which is a little bit different than like a classic bodybuilding. If anybody's ever done a bicep curl, you had a dumbbell in your hand, and you come up and you squeeze and you can really feel it. You can squeeze like right now, and you can try to squeeze your bicep like as hard as you can. You can squeeze it. You're not necessarily thinking about those specific things on these big lifts. You're not thinking like squeeze the tricep or squeeze the quad. What you're doing is thinking about maintaining tension throughout your entire body. So everything is linked up. So when you're working out, you're either linked or you're leaked. And if there's something leaking, then you're not getting as strong as you could. And I know I'm throwing all kinds of principles out out at you. Hopefully something will stick. You remember like, oh, link to link, something like that. So if I'm doing like, say, an overhead press, right, and I'm pressing 2 things overhead, and I'm coming up like so, this is linked. If I'm doing something like that, and one of them's getting squirrely out to the side, I'm leaking. I'm leaking energy. It's an inefficient system. So the more efficient that you get at the mechanics and how things are supposed to flow, right? And I say supposed to, there's no wrong way. I mean, the people that Weston Price talked to weren't like correcting each other's deadlift. I imagine, like, oh, you picked up that bucket wrong, incorrectly, make sure your back is flat, like you're just lifting. But there are certain principles that we can abide by to make sure that we minimize risk of injury. There's a lot of stuff on that board thus far. Questions? So far? No? All right. So 3 to 5 times a week, and now I'm including some of these, and I'm doing maybe 3 to 5 reps of them. How long do you think you have to spend in the gym or in your living room doing this with a kettlebell?
30 minutes?
30 minutes is about, I would say 30 minutes is a good something to shoot for. I'd say 30 minutes is about minimum, but you don't necessarily, anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, right? To develop strength. Now, if you're doing 60 minutes, 3 times a week might be sufficient. If you're doing 30 minutes, you may be able to get away with 5 times. This also depends on how much of this is happening. Anybody ever heard the term overtraining?
Oh yeah.
Overtraining? I'll throw something out there. Don't necessarily think overtraining is a thing. I think under-recovered is the bigger thing. Because there are people out there, if overtraining was really a thing, there's a whole lot of people that are just overtrained and seem to be doing just fine. They're doing just fine because they're eating well, they're sleeping well, they may have a couple of PEDs in there as well. But overtraining, like if you're working out, 5 days a week, 7 days a week, 5 hours a day, like it's too much, right? But it's very difficult to overtrain 3 to 5 times a week, 30 to 60 minutes. Now I've seen people overtrain with 5 days a week, but it's because they're running on 4 hours of sleep, and they're like, I don't know, I had like a cracker earlier or something, some juice. So what you put in your body will absolutely give you the fuel to recover and to build as well. So we got 3 to 5 times a week, 30 to 60 minutes. Now, so if this was, let's say 5 days, you could take 1 day, and if all you wanted to do was say like, I want to get a little bit stronger, I'm gonna dedicate 30 minutes 5 times a week. Do Monday deadlifts, take a day off, do squats on Wednesday, learn the clean or not, get up some carries, throw that together. So I'm going to give you this is just an example of kind of how I might throw this in. So there's 2 more, and I'm going to put them together. No, I'm not. Push and pull. So these are the big things, right? These are the natural things. And actually, I'm going to take cleans for this purpose out of it. So natural human movements: hinge, squat, get up, carry, push, pull. Give me an example of a push.
Bench press?
Push up, bench press, overhead press. Give me an example of a pull.
Rowing.
Rowing, right? Pull-ups, bent over row, pulling. Some sort of maybe getting water out of the well, right? A rope climb could be a pull. So natural human movements that we used to be engaged in that we probably are not anymore. When was the last time you absolutely had to pull something hard?
Some doors are pretty heavy.
Yeah? There you go. Or push, like, I ran out of gas.
Like the
Okay.
best building door actually.
Right? Pull it hard. So pushing, like pushing a car, pushing a sled, could be another one. That's a little bit more of like a something. Pushing a sled is a little bit like everything on there. It's kind of a total body. But pushes and pulls. So an example, I want to give you kind of an example. Do you guys like to see how this looks like during a week? Like what that looks like on a weekly program? So let's say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, So let's say Monday, let's say I'm really big on this minimal effective dose. And I don't want to do more than I have to do, but I do want to get strong. So if I expect to get results and get strong doing 1 day a week at this, it's not going to happen. It's going to suck every time I do that 1 day, because it's going to be like I'm redoing it all the time. So like activities of daily living, like the lady that climbs up the coconut tree, right? It's not like, so if I was to take like my grandmother, and say, hey, climb up that coconut tree, she'd probably tell me where I can go. No, not doing that, but like the other ones just do that all the time. So minimal effective dose. Minimal effective dose, let's say I'm gonna try to knock out some combos here. So I'm gonna do deadlifts and pushes. So I might do, and deadlift, hinge. So, and actually, I know I've been talking about this and everybody's 100% familiar. I jumped up on this same table in another class. I'm gonna do that again. You guys cool? If I jump on this table. All right. Cool. All right. First, I'm gonna draw it. Draw it over here. So a squat, which you guys saw. There's my back. There's my quads. There's my shins. Some long shins. And there's my feet. All right. That's our natural human squat. Now the hinge, back still flat. Here's my quads, vertical shins, like so. So my shoulders are higher than my hips, which are higher than my knees. Where shoulders are here, hips are lower than the knees. Now I could pick something up in a squat, or I could pick something up with a hinge. Neither one is wrong or right. They're going to target different muscles. I didn't sign any waiver. So squat, like so, versus here, right? One of those is a stronger position than the other. So this is my squat. My hinge looks like this. So a little bit different. Maybe I don't take pictures. What am I walking by? So this is my hinge position. All right. Now I could do that with a kettlebell. I could do that with a barbell. I could do it with a sandbag. I could do it with a lot of different things. But this is where, so if I'm holding the barbell, let's say in a front squat, that center of gravity is over here. If I'm holding it here, center of gravity is a little bit more like so. The only thing we're really doing with strength training is taxing good posture. So if I would say posture, usually when I say posture, people go, how am I sitting? Thinking about like, what is your good posture? You've all seen like the anatomical position, right? The muscle guy or girl chart, standing like so, like good posture. If I do a squat, I'm holding on to something, I shouldn't just start crumbling down. All weightlifting is, all strength training is taxing good posture under load. Anybody ever put a backpack on? Like a really tight, secure fitting backpack? Or a really floppy backpack? A really shitty backpack that like weighs a lot and was not meant for you? It feels like you got a really heavy backpack on it. It sucks. If you've got a backpack where the load is evenly distributed and it's tight and secure, that's tension, and that's what strength training should feel like if done well, is that whatever that load is connected. That was a long rabbit hole, but deadlifts and push on Monday, I'm gonna take Tuesday off, because that's what I do. Maybe I'll go for a hike. All right? On Wednesday, I'm gonna squat and pull. So maybe I'll do some air squats, maybe I'll do some kettlebell squats, maybe a barbell squat, a sandbag squat, a dumbbell squat. I'm gonna squat. Be a back squat, front squat, overhead squat, split squat, pistol squat. It's gonna be a squat. Moving naturally, and then I'm gonna pull something. Not a hammy, but I'm gonna pull maybe a rope. Maybe I'm gonna pull myself. I'm gonna do like the Gravitron assisted machine. Maybe I'm gonna use some bands, but I'm gonna pull something. Maybe I have access to a rope. Maybe I'll just hang and work those same muscles. You're pulling muscles. So you're pulling muscles, pushing muscles. Here, right? So Thursday, I'm off again. Go hang out somewhere else. You know what? I'm gonna do get-ups, carries, and then I'm gonna go camping. I've pretty much covered all of the basics. This is what, I do a lot of online programs for people as well. Once they've gone through the mechanics, they have this, typically their program will ebb and flow. It might be a deadlift and a pull, or a squat and a push, or a get up and a squat, things like that. But here is one way where we could get 3 to 5 times a week, putting 30 to 60 minutes of 3 to 5 repetitions in there. Now the carry is a little bit more, there's not necessarily like 3 sets of 10. It might be grab these heavy things and just keep good posture. So like if you were to pick up 2 backpacks right now, like you could probably maintain pretty good posture. If you added some more books, you probably still keep pretty good posture. If we added a couple cannonballs or something in there, like things are going to start to shake a little bit, right? You're going to have to start to get tight. What a carry is taxing good posture under load. That's all that's happening. Same thing with a get up, get down. So if I was to get up and get down on the floor, I get up and get down. Now I hold on to something. A little bit harder, right? If it's a marker, not a big issue. All right? If it's a person or a human, there was America's Got Talent just recently where like a 50-year-old man did a get up with an 80-year-old man.
Oh my God.
Google that. It was amazing. I think they're, where are they from? Serbia or something like that. So this is kind of a little bit of practical application of what that might look like in a program. You feel like you have at least a little bit of information to be dangerous.
Are you gonna talk about muscle recovery short term? Like I think women have shorter period of time when the muscles actually suck up all this glucose.
There is a little bit of difference in men and women in terms of like glucose uptake. Most of that is dictated by hormones. So like how regulated your insulin system is or anything like that. So the more sedentary someone is, and this could be correlation does not equal causation necessarily. When it comes to strength training, men and women, there's a lot of questions. Pretty much do the exact same thing. Now, when it comes to recovery, sleep is the biggest one.
No, I guess it's different terms. When I had pathophysiology as my elective, we had our teacher instructor was also Olympic cyclist. So he was into all that sport exercise. So he brought a speaker who is a registered dietitian and specialized in sports nutrition. And she was talking about that what she called muscle recovery is a very short period of time right after the exercise when the muscles are actively uptaking glucose.
Yes.
So I was wondering, I guess we use the same term for 2 different.
Yeah, so recovery is it's kind of a broad spectrum, right? So you can talk about how recovered am I to work out later this week, or how recovered am I to go again right now?
No, I'm talking about that specific time when I guess women are supposed to be shorter than men, but I forgot what that time is. Like for men, I think maybe a couple of hours, and for women, less than an hour. When the muscles are actively uptaking glucose, and then they don't. So if you don't take glucose in that time, then that recovery that I'm using, that I've heard being used as a muscle recovery, is not going to happen.
So, yes. What we're talking about there is kind of like refuel. So like refuel for the body, and women may be able to refuel quicker than men, or not as much. There may be some little bit of differences in there based on like physiology.
It's kind of reminding me of like one of these myths that I hear was like, as soon as you leave the gym, you better take that protein shake because you're gonna miss your anabolic window and nothing you do is gonna count. Kind of sounds like maybe what you're talking about, like if you don't refuel your body right away, then you're not gonna get the full benefit.
Yes. So that's often, there is some research to support. So what happens, like when you work out, your cortisol spikes. You can drop your cortisol, interestingly enough, with protein and carbohydrates even more. You can also spike your cortisol with sugar, so carbohydrates, right? So there is, most of that was kind of perpetuated by the supplement industry. Drink this one right after your workout, because and then drink this one before you go to bed, right? What happens then is you're drinking 2 servings of their stuff every day. Now, what I like, my little tagline is, donuts are not optimal, but the optimal time to have a donut is immediately after your workout. Because what's going on anabolically, what's going on physiologically in your body right after a workout? Anybody ever had a hard workout and you kind of, you get the shakes a little bit? Carbohydrates will calm that. That's when your blood sugar is maybe a little bit too low. Because if you just did a very hard workout, chances are you used a lot of your available blood sugar and started tapping into glycogen stores, and maybe your body's now like, okay, what's going on? So if you have a little bit of something within, I mean, I generally say just for natural daily activities, if you can get something in with about 30 minutes, male or female, like it'll should help that recovery or at least make you feel better. Now, there's a myth out there that like, oh, if you don't do that, your muscle's just gonna start eating itself. Not really. That's not really a thing. You can get away, there's a lot of people that do fasted workouts where they might fast all day. Fasting is a whole other rabbit hole down there, which is pretty amazing. If you guys started tapping any sort of fasting type stuff, that's a, again, whole different rabbit hole, which also changes hormone levels. But as far, does that answer the question? Kind of like immediately post-workout, if you're gonna do, so like soda's not optimal. Optimal time to have it, if you are gonna have a soda, is immediately post-workout. Now that takes more mental strategy than anything else.
I just was wondering how much is true that limitation, like after 2 hours, if you take that soda, it's not gonna do what it was. Or whatever it is, you know,
Right.
whatever it is, whatever carbohydrates you would take after that period of time. And she called it recovery time.
Yes,
Um,
it's less.
Then that's what, that like didn't make much sense to me, so I was wondering what's your take on that?
Yeah, so let's look at it in terms of, any of you guys ever had like a midday slump or mid-morning kind of, I wanna pass out,
7 days a week.
right? Cheers. So, 7 days a week, happens. Could be midday, could be mid-morning. What you eat for breakfast. So if I wake up and I break my fast, and I have break fast, right? I fasted for 8 hours, so I don't have anything in my system. I wake up, my blood sugar's low. I also haven't done anything for 8 hours. In America, what do we eat for breakfast? Name some breakfast foods.
Bacon.
Pancakes, waffles.
Pancakes,
Lots of
waffles,
carbohydrates.
right?
Potatoes.
Potatoes, waffles, some maybe pastries.
Eggs, butter.
So
Cereal.
pancakes are gonna do something way different than eggs
Bread.
to your blood sugar. If I wake up in the morning and I load myself up, whether it's oatmeal or Lucky Charms, that's a large carbohydrate load. My body's gonna process it a little bit differently. Ultimately, it's all gonna break down to glucose, which is going to raise my blood sugar, which is then gonna make my insulin go, hey, your blood sugar's too high, take this down. Blood sugar's gonna get low, and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna get hungry again, right? The biggest thing that I see helping with that is lowering those carbohydrates in the morning. Not necessarily a low carbohydrate, but like if you're doing a big bowl of cereal or oatmeal or pancakes or whatever that is, swapping that out for a more protein, like swapping it out for an avocado, or, you know, meats, cheeses, eggs, fish, whatever that is. So if I say salmon for breakfast, like I love salmon for breakfast. America's like, gross, that's disgusting. Fish for breakfast, like I'll eat sardines for breakfast, I don't care. But having that, if you think about it like a gas tank, right? So sugar, carbohydrates, is like as premium fuel. So it's like I wake up in the morning, I've done absolutely nothing, and I'm just loading myself, maybe a good tall glass of organic orange juice, right? And a big bowl of organic oatmeal, right? And like, that sounds great, maybe a big bowl of granola. Like, all I've done is give myself a very large carbohydrate load that now my body has to process. And if I'm not doing any activity throughout the day, I've got a bunch of premium fuel that I don't know what to do with. Whereas if I'm working out later that day, I can use that energy, because now your body enjoys using glucose. It can also use ketones. That's kind of another nutrition, that's a deep rabbit hole there. But the body, you will have more energy typically in especially like a very fast bout if you have a little bit of glucose or glycogen in your system. There are very low fat or high fat athletes, low carb, that also seem to be doing pretty well. A lot of that is an individual basis too. But as far as like that recovery period, your body can do much better with a pancake post-workout than it can early in the morning. So swapping that breakfast out, if you know you're gonna have, throughout the day, if you know it's like pancakes and then like big ass salad and meats and potatoes, things like that, if you can kind of tweak that around your workout, around your insulin production or insulin sensitivity, you can change a lot of the hormones that your body secretes. So like, hormones are kind of dictate a lot of what we do, right? It's like a lot of what we do in life is kind of dictated by hormones. some of those hormones we can specifically manipulate. I can manipulate insulin right now if I drink a soda. I can which is kind of cool, interesting, but like eggs aren't gonna do that. They're not gonna change my insulin production. I can change my testosterone and growth hormone by challenging myself with a strong squat. So we can start to begin to manipulate, and this is where one of those, I don't believe we're limited by our genetics, per se. I like to tweak things. Throwing a lot of stuff out there. I appreciate you guys listening and asking questions. Is there anything else you wanna jam on? Questions about? Questions coming in?
Yeah, I was just wondering, for me personally, I don't have a car, so I walk everywhere, to the store, to school, to work, but that's literally the extent of my exercise. I was just wondering, how good is that for me? Could I be doing more, or am I at a good place to start? Or is it just, how beneficial is walking as exercise, miles and miles a day?
One of the best things that you could possibly do is
Really?
walk.
Okay.
Yes. Correlation is not always equal causation, but as far as there are people around the world that walk a lot, walk frequently. If you wanted to, could you be doing more? Depends on your goals, right? If you wanted to say, hey, what if I bought a 35-pound kettlebell and just started playing with that in the morning? A couple kettlebell swings or some squats or something like that, you might just start to feel differently. But you're also walking with a backpack, right? So technically you're doing heavy carries everywhere you go. If you're walking to the store, you're buying groceries, now you're doing farmer's carry. That's what we call farmer's carry. Yeah. Weights in each hand. So is that good? Yes. There's a book out there, one of my favorite, what really got me into kind of changing my perspective on strength training and nutrition. Are you guys familiar with Mark Sisson and the Primal Blueprint? Mark Sisson. So Mark Sisson's the author of a book called The Primal Blueprint. He has a blog called Mark's Daily Apple. I started following his blog years ago, and the idea was it's sort of down the paleosphere, but not as hardcore paleo-Nazi. It's a little bit more what he calls primal. So primal is eat meat, vegetables, nuts, seeds, some fruit, little starch, move frequently at a slow pace, and he has 9 primal principles. And I think the first one is move frequently at a slow pace, means walk. Because some people are man, I know I should exercise, I know I should get out and run, and they think it has to be this thing. Or really, it's the only people, there are some cultures out there that just run everywhere, but it's typically because the next town is 20 miles away, and then they're not gonna walk there because they can get there faster if they run, so it's more efficient. But walking is literally it's one of the best things that you can do. So move frequently. I don't remember all principles, but it's move frequently at a slow pace, lift heavy things, sprint once in a while, play, avoid poisonous things. Very basic, but then he goes down. He's got it sounds pretty reasonable, right? It's what's poisonous to me might be different than what's poisonous to you. So if I have a shellfish allergy, that's just poison to me. Right? If you don't have a shellfish allergy, that might be a great source of protein for you. It's different, right? If I'm celiac, then gluten is poison to me. If you're not, your ancestors been eating gluten for 10,000 years, you might be okay with it. Does that answer?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
For sure. Walking is good. It's great.
What about dancing?
Dancing? That's walking and play. So I would say that's even maybe, you could dance everywhere. I knew a guy who used to dance everywhere. Yeah, dancing's awesome.
Are there times throughout the day in general that are more beneficial to exercise, regardless of, of course nutrition's gonna have to play around that, but
yeah,
waking up and exercising, is that better than exercising just before bed?
I have this question. This question pops up a lot, especially in the fitness industry. When's the best time to work out? My first answer is the time that you're going to actually do it.
Yeah, right.
When can?
When can you?
Yeah.
So if your life is so busy that you're I don't know, the only time I can do this is at Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5:30 a.m., then that's your time. If you know you want to do it and you realize that you may literally change your physiology and change your DNA by incorporating specifically. So with strength training, different than walking or dancing, that's still amazing, just cardiorespiratory, great for your body health. Strength training does different things where you can literally like flip those epigenetic switches and start changing your physiology. So that's the first answer, is when you can do it. When can you do it? That's when I want you to do it. Second answer is the afternoon seems to be where people do a little bit better, especially with strength. It's difficult to get under a squat rack at 5:30 a.m. It's not impossible. People do it all the time. It's a little bit easier once you've just kind of walked around the day. What happens with most people, the only excuse for not getting to the gym in the morning is that you didn't wake up. By 5 p.m., I ate something weird for lunch, there was traffic, and the weather's weird, and there's happy hour, and I got homework. Like, the excuses just start piling up from, like, the time we wake up.
So that leads me to another question. How much does central nervous system stress affect your ability to adapt to strength training? Because I've heard that, like, if you go to the gym with an already heightened, sympathetic nervous system response, that's going to be less effective than if you're really chill.
Yes. You guys familiar with HRV, heart rate variability?
Yes.
So, like, I have this little tracker. It's called a Whoop, WHOOP, and it's a heart rate variability tracker. So this morning I woke up and my HRV was at 53%, which means like I'm okay to train. It goes up to 100. Yesterday was 94. The more I work out, the more that number goes down. So I can literally see how recovered I am based on my heart rate variability. You can take some of that as far as like a resting heart rate. So if you wake up in the morning and your resting heart rate's like 90, that might be a good day for yoga. You wake up and it's like 50, 60, okay, now might be a good day to push it. So that's a little bit more like technical. Heart rate variability really started getting popular with MMA fighters, because MMA fighters will push themselves harder than just about anybody else in the strength training world, because their job is to fight and beat someone else physically, right? So like it's different. You got to pull those guys back, like, because they will train every day if they think that this training methodology is going to get them closer. So in order to dial them back, they started using this heart rate variability. They're like, your heart rate variability is high today, let's throw down. All right, we're going to do some jump rope, we're going to do some box jumps, we're going to get in the ring for a while. Your heart rate variability is crap today. Today, you're going to be doing rest and just movement. So that's a little bit more technical. You can kind of base it on like, you can sort of base heart rate variability. It does correlate with like resting heart rate. So the higher your heart rate variability, the lower your resting heart rate. The higher your resting heart rate, usually the lower your heart rate variability. But there are times where, like, every time you go to you wake up and here's your day. This is your stress level, homeostasis stress level. And then you get that phone call, whatever that phone call is, and your stress level. Maybe it was the water bill. Maybe it was somebody's in the hospital. And then you're late for work. Somebody cut you off. You got in an accident. Now you got tail light out. Your stress level is even higher. This is what used to happen on the African savannah, right? Like, there's a cheetah. Up goes my cortisol, so I can use anything I want to. Not same things happening to you in real life. And your stress level is just getting higher and higher and higher. Now, sometimes a good workout can drop you down. Sometimes an intense workout can actually take you even lower. So what's interesting about this, right? So like the strain, like your daily strain, people are like, oh, I'm not really working out, I'm not straining. Like, all of you have a strain. That strain, like, I got up, I walked up the stairs. I walked up the stairs here, I had a backpack. I walked up those stairs, I walked down those stairs. Where's my car? Where's my Uber? That strain starts piling up. The interesting thing about weightlifting and strength training specifically is that your strain naturally, because your body gets stronger, a strain that would have taken you to a 10 only takes you to a 5, which is why so many people, number one cause of death in America, cardiovascular disease. You can decrease cardiovascular disease with everything from nutrition to exercise to breathing and stress management. Stress management, community, and other rabbit holes. But if you can maintain some, for some people, the gym is their stress management. Lift something heavy. For other people, it could be, that's a little bit more, kind of answer the question, it's kind of.
Totally. It's a complex thing, I realize that.
But there is a system to it, if you start diving into like heart rate variability. Now, do I always listen to it? Not necessarily.
Sometimes you gotta get your back out of it.
I feel really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen to your body. Sleep. I realize I haven't asked anybody online. I'm not really sure. Taylor Keith or John Lord? What's up?
Yeah, usually the chat. Somebody's got a chat.
Anybody see?
No, it doesn't look
All right. Further questions? All right. Paper? Where's that? Is that paper somewhere?
Here's right.
All ready? Yes. Thank you. All right, guys. Well, thank you for letting me take your Thursday.
Yeah, so you demonstrate to get up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Get up. So if you go to existence and type in Turkish get up with a shoe, I'm going to do it with a marker here. All right. So typically it's done with a kettlebell. You slip the kettlebell in, sitting on the back of your wrist. One of the big goals is to keep your wrist straight. So here I'm linked. Where am I here? Leaked. I'm leaking. Leaking all over the place. So linked up. Half of the get up. And then Turkish get up.
All right.
All right, so you put your shoe on top of your hand as well. Just doing back movement. I've had people open up their hips, open up their shoulders, come back, and then as it starts to feel better and better, they start to have, as the mechanics get sour, you get the consistency, then
So do not start with weight.
do not start with weight. All right. Cool. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And I will send you guys. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, maybe wants pictures of my.
Okay. And then.
It's right here. Down, friends.
And over there. Also.
Yeah.
Thank you, online folks. Zoomers.